Collective bargaining is actually a major function of a union activity. By collective, it actually does mean collective. The entire collected group of employees that elected to have a union, they elect officers to represent them at a bargaining table to act on their behalf, to collectively, or those representatives act on their behalf, and then they negotiate with management as they go through, and they form a legal document called a collective bargaining agreement. The slang term for it is contract. We have our contract, we have our collective bargaining agreement. They really mean the same thing as you go through. So let's talk about the process as you go through. You know, there you have a collective bargaining agreement, but you also have a series of other things that the employer and the employees have to do. The employer has a legal right to establish work rules, and the work rules are sitting there. They're not in the collective bargaining agreement, but they can post the rules. They can tell about the rules. You need to be here on time. Well, that's not in a contract anywhere. You also have different rules that are passed by the government as you go through. Federal, state, local government that you have to abide by, and so do the employees as you go through. There's a web of rules that are involved. When it comes down to looking as to what do you want to do as an employer, look at your environment as you go through, see who the participants are, look at your web of rules, so to speak, and what is your philosophy on it. Now, no matter how good you are, you're not going to eliminate conflict. Conflict is part of life to begin with, and you got two people together, you're going to probably have conflicts sometime as you go through, even if they get along on 95% of everything, that little bit, or maybe somebody just had a bad day as you go through. Collective bargaining is not going to eliminate conflict. Sometimes you have to go past that to mediation, arbitration, sometimes get people involved in decision making as you go through. But always keep in mind that the union has a legal right to look at three different things and negotiate them, and the right has been given to them by federal law: wages, hours, and working conditions. Put that in your notes, not only for this class, but also for life as you go through. If you ever are involved in an organization dealing with that 10.3% of America that's unionized as you go through, or maybe if you're in the public sector, that 33+% as you go through, you need to know wages, hours, and working conditions are things the union has a legal right to talk about as you go through. Typically, as you go through the bargaining unit, they go out as they talk to their membership saying, hey, what do you want to talk about at the negotiating table? What do you want in your contract as you go through? In the meantime, management goes out, they ask the other people in management, hey, what do you want to have in here? What do you want me to get out of this thing? What do you want to have happen? So you have these dialogues going on both sides, and there really is no uniform format as you go through, but we're going to cover some things that are generally found in a collective bargaining agreement. You can have anything in there, provided both sides agree to it and sign the document as you go through after their sides vote for it. So that being said, no, it's not uniform, but you'll see a lot of these things as you go through. Remember also, collective bargaining agreement and contract, they're usually synonyms as you go through. By the time you're all done, the bargaining unit administration, they have plant supplements. They have always talk about how long the contract lasts. 3 years is a pretty common item. I've seen them go out to 4 and 5 years. Depends on the state what the law is. There's also provision to renegotiate the contract based upon any changes of laws or statutes that affect this contract as you go through. Need to sit down and come back to the table if it affects any conditions in contract. That's kind of standard language as you go through. Union, they always want to have their security. Nobody else during the term of this contract can come in and try to take us over. I understand it's called self-preservation as you go through. There's special bargaining committees as you go through. If this comes up, we should form a committee. There's almost always a grievance procedure, or in other words, a procedure if somebody feels the contract isn't followed as you go through. Usually it's the employee filing a grievance against administration, although one time, just for entertainment purposes, I threatened to file a grievance against the union for not following the contract. It was almost hilarious. They were actually sweating as you go through. But that being said, then usually you'll have arbitration or mediation somewhere mentioned in there. Now, keep this definition in mind. Mediation is non-binding and non-required. You can sit down and have a mediator come in and go argue with their, hey, you over here decide, union. they're going to get you on this. You're going to lose this over here. Then they turn around and they use the same argument against administration, but they do it secretly as you go through. And that way they don't have to sit down and control both sides in front of the other. You, management, you sit down and if you do this, the union's got you over here. So frankly, it really helps an awful lot to have a third party come in if you ever are stuck. In arbitration, typically, they'll come in and mandate certain conditions as you go through. You always have the aspect that the union has a right to go on strike. You always have the right, management can always lock it out. And there's usually items in there to enforce the contract as you go through. Almost always on the management side, the management has rights clauses. They have plant removal as you go through. They usually try to, they want to sit down, that they want to move the plant out of the country, they can do that. If they want to subcontract parts of the work, you want to seek that out. One time I wanted to bring in people to sit down and trim trees as you go through. So we had a clause in there that anything above 12 feet, the management has a right to contract out for safety purposes to subcontractors rather than employees doing it, because they don't want to do the high work anyway as you go through. So sometimes you have that aspect of it. Union activities on company times, legally they have some rights, but you got to be, they should negotiate that aspect. Union management cooperation, before filing agreements, we need to have a preliminary first step to sit down and discuss it between the supervisor and the employee or union representative, something like that as you go through. Sometimes technology changes as you go through. Employees doing this, and also you want to change like that because a new software system shows up. Well, maybe the union is frustrated because management has done that without any proper training, and they want to include something like that. A lot of times there's advanced notice consultation depending on what's involved with. Here's some more things in here. You'll see them in the contract. This is not going to be a test question as you go through. Okay, but that being said, on this particular section here, hiring, transfer, employment income, reporting, and call-in pay. I've had to deal with that before. What happens if you're called in an emergency on the holidays you go through? There's 11 holidays defined in the contract. We want to be paid double time. Well, no, we want to be paid time and a half and straight time, which is actually 2.5 times their wage to come in on those days. That's a pretty common thing as you go out there. What about supplemental unemployment benefit plans in case we get laid off on a regular basis? What about that? What about reduction of hours to forestall layoffs as you go through? I had to do that once. Instead of laying off 7 people because we had a budget crunch, we actually negotiated a deal to lay everybody off for 3 days a month. It worked out great, to be honest about it. It was really good. Everybody loved it. And then I had about 5 complaints when we went back to, because people wanted to have the extra 3 days unpaid days off. It was almost humorous. They got what they want. And once they tried to go back and they'd take it away, they got mad because of that too. So it doesn't matter. Work sharing in lieu of layoff. Promotion. You'll see all these different aspects will come to the bargaining table, and you often have to sit down and talk about them with the union before you implement it unilaterally as you go through. Vacations, holidays, sick leave, funeral, personal leave, military leave as you go through. Personal leave, there's actually one contract that I was involved with, 3 pages of different types of personal leave as you go through. Different kinds of health plans. They want to be part of the committee that selects the insurance plan. Pension plans, profit sharing, bonus plans. Sometimes you have different arrangements in there about workers with disabilities, older workers, women, veterans, union reps, non-discrimination clauses, apprentices and learners as you go through. Collective bargaining agreement, the purpose of it is to sit down there and have a formal dialogue that you have as you go through. We want to talk about this over here. This is the concern to the people, and they want to be able to sometimes put things in writing. There's a lot of good things that can be in a collective bargaining agreement. Of course, you always talk about money. And of course, the big 3, wages, hours, and working conditions as you go through. But not everything goes in. The employer can have work rules. You have to follow the laws that for specific areas as you go through. So not everything goes in there. But the things that do, if you don't follow them, then grievances can be filed because the language is violated. So there's a lot of solid things to talk about, a lot of clear communication. Positions are put in writing as you go through, and we call that entire document called a collective bargaining agreement or a contract as you go through. Take care.